Hello everyone, and welcome back to science class. Kind of. In this video, I will be talking about and introducing our phase changes model arts integration project. So not only is this your first project this year in science, it is also your very first arts integration project. So now let's jump right in and look at what this project is going to entail. So the standards that are addressed in this project, as it is an arts integration project, are both science and art standards. So the science standard that this project is addressing is MSPS 4.1, which is develop a model that predicts and describes changes in particle motion, temperature, and state of a pure substance when thermal energy is added or removed. The art standard that is being addressed is the presenting or PR anchor standard number 6, which is convey meaning through the presentation of artistic work. So putting those two together, you can see that we are going to be creating a model which is showing particles in matter involving their temperature, their state, and the thermal energy of the substance. We're going to present it through artistic work. So now let's read our project description to get a little bit more detail on what that's going to look like. Because you can't see the individual particles that make up matter, it can be tricky to understand. For this reason, many times in science, we use what is called a model. And a model in science is simply a representation of an idea, object, or process that is used to describe and explain phenomena that cannot be experienced directly. So in our case, the phenomena that we cannot experience directly or visually is states of matter and phase changes. So in this project, you will create a model to represent the particles of matter, which we cannot see, in all three states of matter. And you're going to use that model to also represent what happens to these particles when phase changes occur. So now let's look at the required components of your model. So whichever artistic format you choose to present your model, which is what we'll look at next, it must include all of these components, though they will look different because they are being presented in a different art form. So the first thing that your project must include is a project introduction. Now again, depending on the format or the mode that you use to present your model, this could be different. So it could be a cover page. If it's a booklet, it could be a section of a poster, an intro to a video. This will make more sense when we look at our options for the arts integration piece. But the things that it must include are your name, the project title, and some sort of labeled representation of each of our three states of matter. The second component that it must include is labeled models of the particles of each of the three states of matter, which should show and describe the particle speed, the particle motion, the particle kinetic energy from greatest to least, and the overall thermal energy of the substance from greatest to least. The third component is where you are going to be actually showing your phase changes. So in this component, you should show particle models and the names of each phase change representing both the beginning and the final phase in that phase change. For each of these particle models, you should include the change in thermal energy that's taken place, so whether it increased or decreased, the change in kinetic energy, whether it was an increase or decrease, the change in the molecule's motion, whether they speed up or they slow down, and the relative pressure of the substance from greatest to least. The final component that your model should include is an explanation of how changes in pressure on a gas and a liquid affect the amount of energy needed to undergo a phase change between the liquid and gaseous states, as well as how changing the thermal energy of a gas affects its pressure. So when I increase or decrease the thermal energy of a gas, what happens to its pressure? So now that we see all of the required science components that are necessary, now we're going to look at the different artistic modes that you can use to create your model. Now, as it is an arts integration project, you will be conveying the meaning of your model through some sort of artistic process. This may be in several formats, including all of the multiple modes included in this choice board. So let's quickly look at what our options are. You can create a poster. You can create and perform and record a dance. Now, in our dance, we will not be able to include all of the details, so your dance should also include either an oral or a written explanation of how that dance models all of the required components. You also could build a three-dimensional model or models with a written or oral explanation to explain, again, all of those components in the required components. You also could create a skit or a performance, which you would then again write, act, and record. You can create a visual piece of art, like a painting or a drawing, to represent your model, with also an oral or written statement, including and explaining all of those components. You can create a comic strip or an illustrated booklet. And if you are more musical and feeling very creative, you could even write a song or a rap or even a poem, which you will then perform and record to explain all of the components of our model. Now, here are some examples of some previous Crossroads students and their phase change models. Now, these will be available for you to reference. However, I will mention that you can see that all of these are sort of visual, either two-dimensional or three-dimensional models. That is because when this project was done last year, it was not an arts integration project. So, though these students did fantastic work, as you can see, they are all in the same format of a poster. Now you have the option to exhibit and show your proficiency in this standard in many, many different artistic means.